shape, lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under. Ain't it funny how there ain't no rain or clear? Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't no shade.
Hi, everybody. This is Pearl Sharenza with Conversations with Pearl and Women's Successful Living. And I am so excited for our next episode. And I've met this amazing person through Clubhouse, and I just love her story. We had a great talk, and I'm excited for her to share her story with you. And I want to introduce to you Karla Docter. And Karla is a founder of Empower Con and Venture Life Coaching. And Karla is an international author, speaker, leader, survivor advocate, coach who loves to empower, educate, energize, and equip women with the skills, tools, and resources that helps them strategize to overcome challenges, living a juicy, joyful, and abundant life. So you can find out more. We'll put some more information for how to reach Karla, but I'm excited to have Karla here today. Karla, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
We're so excited to have you here today. And so you are, where are you at again? Remind us where you're coming in from.
So I am in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Yes. All right.
Oklahoma.
I've been there once or twice. So I love it. It's a cute little farm areas where I went. So it's a little off the grid is where I went. I can't remember the town, but so I'm excited to have you here. So you and I talked before, and we both believe in empowering women to live that best life they can live, right? So tell us about your journey. Like what brought you to wanting to get your message out? And as I like to say to everybody, we have these amazing tools that we're born with. We have our journeys already decided. And what we do with that journey is so important, because if we don't develop those tools we have or share that message in that journey, what can happen is the rest of us may not know or learn from your lesson. So walk us through where you are. What brought you to where you are today, Karla?
Well, I don't know if we have enough time today to get through all of that. I guess the very short and condensed version of that would be basically my kind of journey started when I was 15 and I was in my very first unhealthy relationship. And through that, I got into more unhealthy relationships and was kind of like stuck in that cycle. And the thing that got me through like ending the first one was when I realized my worthiness. And I was like, I deserve to be treated better than this. And for 10 years, I was in this cycle of mental, emotional, verbal, sexual, physical abuse and violence. And then I was raped in college by a college friend. And then I was robbed and held at gunpoint. So I had this 10-year period of just a lot of abuse. And I took on all of the language and labels that other people put on me, right? You're dumb, fat, ugly, undeserving, nobody else will ever treat you better than this. And, so I had to peel back some layers, but I didn't get that aha moment until after I graduated college. So I went to school for criminal justice psychology and forensic science. I was going to be CSI before it was a popular TV show. And with that, I realized after I graduated that I have way too much anxiety to be a police officer because of all of these things that I had gone through. But not only that, as I was trying to get a job in law enforcement, I ended up getting a DUI, so driving under the influence. And that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. Through that experience, I was able to really reflect back and say, okay, how did I get to this point? I used to have control over it. I have a drink or two, and that would be it. But all of a sudden, now I was hot mess express. And what I realized was that person, she did not love herself. And she was doing things that were out of character that for me. Right. And I thought back and I'm like, what happened? And I was able to pinpoint that it was that rape by my college friend. And I'm like, okay, so there's something here. So I start diving into it. And I was, I ditched out on doing this physical agility test for law enforcement. And instead, I went to the library and I got books on domestic violence and sexual assault. And I went to my local coffee shop and I sit down with my books. And one of my regulars that would, it was a pub and grill that I worked at. One of my regulars from that place came and she sat down next to me and she always called me Angel. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And she's like, what are you working on, Angel? And I was like, well, I just had this new epiphany and I feel like I'm supposed to do something here and maybe work and help other women who've gone through this. And she's like, see, Karla, you really are an angel. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. You're silly. And I walk out to my car, Pearl. You can't make this stuff up. I walked out to my car, and this is summer of 2006. There was a 2007 calendar on the ground in front of my driver's side door, and on the cover, it said Angels on Earth.
Wow. How powerful.
And I was like, looking up at this guy, like, okay, there's something here. I mean, I even have chills now just like saying that again, And so I was like, I think this is what I need to do. And so then that got me on a journey to really working with survivors. And so, I applied over the course of a year and a half to try to get a volunteer job. And eventually, divine timing, what felt like forever, but persistence, right? That 11th hour moment that we talk about when those miracles and those things happen. That's what happened. And I had a volunteer interview and she said yes. And then I was like, this is my heart, my passion, what I want to do. Like, what are my chances of getting a job? And she's like, well, kind of slim to none. And I was like, devastated. And my friend at the time was like, Karla, don't give up. Just once you get in there and they get to know you, like, they'd be foolish to not hire you. So like, keep going. And so I did. And before I even finished the volunteer training, they offered me a part-time position. And before I was done training with the part-time position, I was offered a regular shift working in the shelter. And that actually brought me to Oklahoma because the guy that I was with wanted to go to law school here. And so this all happened in Milwaukee. And he wanted to go to law school in Oklahoma. And I said, if I get this one job in Oklahoma, I'll go. And I was the very first person they've ever done a phone interview, hired over the phone. A month later, I'm in Oklahoma. I'm like, well, I'm meant to spend some time here. So that's what brought me here. And then I worked with survivors here for about 10 years and started with the sexual assault advocacy, then took on the forensic exams. I'm like, yay, I'm using my college degree, prevention education, grant writing, agency. I mean, all the things. They hired 3 people when I left.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's like part of my heart and my core is like working to end domestic and sexual violence is kind of part of the higher purpose that I hope to do with the abundance that flows to me that I can give back and help with some bigger programs and things like that.
Yeah. And I think it's so like to take your story, I think it's so important. I was sexually abused by a sitter when my parents, good friends of theirs, their son would come down and babysit us. And so I went through that. And then years later, I was actually sexually abused by a boyfriend who I had no clue. And later I found out it was more of a bet amongst boys about, who was going to, make that it's sad to say that accomplishment. Right. And so that, for a while there, like I kind of suppressed that, right. I didn't, sort of like what you said, I didn't go down some of the paths that led you, but as I started, as I met my husband, who, is just an amazing person. And I was like, I don't deserve this person, right? It's like you start doubt yourself, right? And you start doubting the good things that are coming, because like you said, this other person just was told, you're not worthy. And like you said, you're overweight, and all these negative thoughts that we start believing them. Right. And so it's like pulling that weight out, like getting yourself out and like pulling you, out of that situation. It can be really hard. And some women struggle to even still to get out of that situation. And so I think it's really powerful that you were able to do that, and that you brought that forward, and you're paying that forward, and you're doing the work you're doing. I just think it's, we need more of that, especially now we're hearing so much about, human trafficking and all this terrible things that are happening in the world. And to share that message, I think it's really powerful. When you work with, when you're working with the women you work with, what that woman, that girl that you're working with, and she just feels like, you know what, I don't care what you say, Karla, I'm just not worth it. Right? Where do you dig deep down inside to be like, I'm going to prove to you you're worth it. I'm going to prove to you that all these naysayers, they're not to be listened to. What motivates you to show them and pull them through when they have that deep down thought?
Yeah. Well, first I want to recognize you and say thank you for sharing. And, for also like being part of the truth and the movement, and understanding your worthiness, and giving hope to others too, that you could find a happy, healthy relationship. Right. So I just want to send you love, and thank you for sharing that piece.
Thank you.
I think now, now that I no longer necessarily work one-on-one specifically with survivors. However, what I've noticed is that the majority of my current like coaching clients and people that are in my community have all experienced domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, trafficking. We all have something that we've experienced. And I think it's really important to note that we're not alone. Right. And so, whether you've experienced, and you can relate to my story, or have experienced something else of abandonment, adoption, abortion, like whatever that may be, that you're not alone, and that I encourage you to seek to find community and support. I think now when I mostly work with entrepreneurs, and when I see different areas that are holding them back, everything spirals and stems down to this worthiness issue, right? We can look at fear of rejection and why they're not showing up consistently on social media. They're not doing the things that they know that they quote unquote should be, right? They should all over themselves, which is just another way that we can continue to play small and feel safe and not be seen by other people. But we do want to be seen, right? Like we want to be seen, validated, and heard. So when it comes down to this worthiness issue, that like we're taught somehow, somewhere in our teens, as if worthiness is something that we have to earn. Now, let me just say this right now. Worthiness is your birthright. You don't have to do a dang thing to be worthy. When my son was born and I looked at him, you tell your children, you are worthy of everything that's beautiful and anything that you desire, right? It's your birthright. You don't have to do anything. You don't have, like, there's this whole like enoughness principle. Like, you are enough just as you are. You know enough, you're smart enough, you're beautiful enough, you're talented enough. Like, you are 1 in 7 billion people on this planet. And if you have a desire on your heart, because you have that desire was gifted to you from God, universe, source, whatever it is that you want to believe in, desire of the sire, like it is meant for you. And because you are a living, breathing person on this planet right now, you are worthy of it. Now, we can consciously know this, right? Subconsciously, we still have all this programming that's running behind our heads. We think or hear of all the different things that hold us back from really truly embodying it. And it's a process, and it's a healing journey that we go on. And there's a lot of different modalities that can help with that. But like first, straight out the gate, like knowing that this is your birthright and that if you have that desire on your heart, it is meant for you. And God, universe, source, divine source energy, whatever it is, they want you to have it too.
I love that, we are, you're right. When we're born, we're deserving of everything. We're worthy, all of that, right? And then I think it's like around that 5 to 7 years old that they go, oh, well, all that negative talks, you should know better. You should, don't do that. It's like, that's so powerful to remember to the listeners that no matter what talk you have in your back of your head, you're worthy of it, right? I mean, people are so fearful of like, I don't want to do that. That freaks me out, scares me. Well, the opposite of fear is being empowered. Like you empower yourself to go to do it, right? So lean into the fear, and why not go after what you deserve to receive, right? I think it's so powerful to remember that no matter what, you're worthy of everything that's out there, and it's just waiting for you to receive it, right? Just stop the noise, listen to it, and listen to what you want. Set your boundaries and tell yourself, I deserve this and I'm going to go after it, right? And like you said, you work with entrepreneurs, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I know that I even suffer that, a coach. I have a coach. I tell you, coach needs coaches, right? And so I have that self that I have to remind it sometimes. I just recently divorced a friendship of 4 years, and I realized all that energy that I didn't realize that negative energy that was around me was actually holding me back. And then bam, once I released that, it's like, wow, this is what I've been missing. And so that's another point too, to the listeners, is that who you surround yourself with is really important too, because if they're being narcissists to you, if they're not lifting you up, they shouldn't be around you. You need to, I remember I tell everybody the story how my parents were going through a divorce, and they were 40 years marriage. I mean, I was already married with kids. And I remember going to my pastor going, I feel like I'm in this tug of war with him, right? I'm like, what the heck do I do? And he's like, stop, don't tug of war with him. It's their tug of war. You don't have to hold the rope, but we don't pick our parents. Only whoever you believe in picks your parents. You can love them, and you do love them, but they have to play by your rules. So you set the boundaries. If they can't play by your rules, let them sit on the bench. They can sit on the bench of the ball game, and when they're ready to play by your game of rules, you let them back in. And if they don't, you put them out again. So I thought that was such a powerful, powerful statement. So tell me, living the dream. I love that you say you're truly living the dream, right? And that, you're out going to concerts and things like that. So what does truly living the dream mean? And when you come through obstacles that even though we're living the dream, we're still going to have obstacles that come in our way, right? What talk do you give yourself to help you pull through those obstacles so you can stay focused on living that dream?
Oh, this is like a juicy question. Good job. Okay, so the whole living the dream thing all started. I went to a motivational talk back when I worked at the nonprofit, and this guy, like, he juggled, he did all the things. I wish I could remember his name, but he said, anytime somebody asks you how you're doing, say that you're living the dream. Right? Like, one of the things I talk a lot about are like, be aware of the energy that you bring into space, right? So like, yeah, we all have struggles, and there's a difference between like sugarcoating and being a Pollyanna. Like, I like to think of myself as a hopeful realist. And so, but it's like, I could choose to like, and there are people in spaces where I can have a conversation and like be real about what's really going on in my life. And it's important that you have those people, right? Counselors, coaches, friends, partners. But like, I would always say that I'm living the dream, because I could choose to come in and just dump and lay all my stuff on there. But then how are we going to help the survivors who really need us in that moment, right? Like, what I'm going through right now is nothing compared to this person who's fleeing this terrifying situation, right? Or this person who needs my support because she just had so much power and control taken away from her. So I think part of it was like the mindset that I set the intention that my reality is going to be what I want it to be, and that it can be this juicy, joyful, abundant, fun, outgoing, adventurous life. because we get to choose. And I think part of that too goes back to, the power that we give away, right? So going back to like energy and being aware of that, but like, who is it that you're letting drain your energy? Like you mentioned before, Pearl, like, I believe it's Jim Rohn who says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so who are those people? And in order for me to live my juicy, joyful, living the dream life, I had to release a lot of people and things that were no longer serving me, because energetically I was still allowing them to hold power over me, right? And forgiveness is huge. And so if you have experienced some sort of trauma, and even, a best friend said something, or your most recent situation, that like, the more we continue to hold on to and harness that anger or sadness or resentment, the longer we hold on to that, we're still giving them power over us. And so really finding forgiveness practices, cutting cords, doing energetic things, to really release that, helps one really live that dream. And while it might suck and it might be really inconvenienced, and this morning, there's a family member that I may need to, let go onto, find a new home. And it's one of those things where it's like, I know that the more that I release means that the more that I'm going to be able to receive. Because if this negative energy and that vibration will suck you in. If I were to lay on my carpet right now, I would see every single dog hair, dust, Cheez-It dust cracker from my kid, right? I would see everything because you're down there, you're vibrating at that level. But if I were to stand on my table and look down on my floor, I'm like, ooh, yes, my floor looks really clean. It's all about your perspective, but it's not about just sugarcoating everything and this like toxic positivity to where I'm just going to push in all that positive. You really have to like release and let go, and transmute that energy, that emotion, that feeling. So it's a very much this give and take, and you have to be able to give up. You have to be able to give in order to receive. And so sometimes for us to be able to embody and enjoy whatever it is that's living the dream for you, that also means releasing and letting go and forgiving and cutting cords.
I love that analogy about the floor, right? Like you're right. If you allow yourself to stay down there and stay down, that's where you're going to stay. You're going to stay with all that dust, all that stuff that's down there. And that's all you're going to see. When you start getting above and you start looking from the bigger picture and really going, this is not so bad up here. This is pretty good. This is right where I want to be, right? That's such a great visual for everybody and for to see. And you're right. And that whole energy and that 5 people around you, right? Because you are the sum. And I think you're right. It's like the sum of the 5 people you hang around with. It's just like they talk about who you hit, what you do socially too. Like if you're trying to get healthy and you're socially around people who are unhealthy and they're going to eat, you're going to be sucked into that. No matter how hard you try, you're going to fight. Right. And it's, it goes to addiction too. It's like, you have to release that journey, and you have to release those people. We have somebody we love dearly that's coming through his journey of sobriety, and to watch him go, I need to make these changes and make these choices and take people out of your life. And that's what's important, is if they don't serve you well, they don't belong in your life, right? And for me, what I just went through, it really was like sitting back going, why didn't I see that? And what's interesting too, I find this very interesting. And I don't know if it's because women, we don't want to say anything, but it was interesting to hear some of the people around me go, yeah, I saw that narcissist behavior around you. And we just couldn't understand why you would accept that, and I'm like going, why didn't you say anything? Like why didn't you say anything? I think like it, even for me, when I had friends that I saw in abusive situations, I would not say, I think he's being abusive, but I'd go and say, hey, if you ever need to talk, if you need, to talk about anything that's going on. Like I always offer that safe space, and that's through coaching. It's the same thing I do through my coaching. We have a safe space here. So whatever you need to tell me, it stays here. And if we need to get you the guidance, let's start working on that. Right. And so it just blew my mind when I sat back. I was going, why didn't anybody say anything? It's a whole nother talk. I'm gonna do a thing about that because I think it's a whole discussion on that. But you're right. It's like we have to see, what the bigger thing is. It's not the dust on there. If we stay down there with the dust, we're never gonna pull up. If we stay down with the negative, we're never gonna pull ourselves up. And living the dream, I mean, you're right. It's all about, like we said earlier, that mindset. If we keep telling ourselves we're not worthy, we're never going to feel worthy. But if we tell ourselves, I'm living the dream, I deserve everything I'm abundantly about to receive, you're going to start receiving it. And I love that you get the analogy too about if you start opening up and getting rid of that stuff, you're going to receive that abundance, right? It's so, so important. I mean, my story is my dad, our oldest is adopted and he's mixed race. And my dad, when my kids were younger, great grandfather, awesome papa, great to be around. But as my oldest was getting older and teenagers act like teenagers, right? They're going to talk back to you. They're going to talk smack. They're not going to listen to you, right? But my parents never were able to separate grandparents from parents. They thought they had to play both roles. So my son and him kept butting heads, but my dad actually turned racist towards my son. And that was a tough part to be in as a daddy's girl and the proud mama, right? So it's like, so I had to separate. And so I separate that. And then years later, I went to go visit with his second wife. And she told the story, you know how you tell your kids, I don't remember how old yours, but you tell your kids put their stuff away, right? And they never put it away. If you put it where I told you to put it, you'll always know it's there, right? So my son had that issue with his football cleats. And he's like, I can't find my cleats. And I always say, put them in the laundry room so you know where everything's at. And he could never find them. Then all of a sudden, came time, they'd show up. I'm like, oh, he found them. Well, kind of find out, my dad was actually hiding my son's cleats on him. And I was like going, oh my gosh. So at that point, like I walked outside after she told me that. I sat in her driveway and I literally, for all those years, I really thought maybe somehow or another, my dad, might be able to pull through it. I literally was like, I'm a mama bear. I need to take care. And now my kid was in college by now, but I literally wrote him an obituary to our relationship. Like I said, I release you as my father. I mean, I didn't do it right away. Like I sat and prayed, next God, show me what to do. And that's what he put in my heart. So the release of that was so powerful because I never had that hope anymore that he'll pull through and everything. I accepted him for who he was, what he did, and I released that relationship, So it is so powerful to know who you are. The cool thing is you raise your kids the way to treat people right. My oldest just came home 2 weeks ago from Texas, and he's like, if Papa came back here, I'd be fine with it, So I know I raised him with a good heart. And I was like, I'm so glad you're fine with it. I no longer have a dad that I can call a dad, So it's so powerful, like what you said, to have those people around you that are going to give you the energy, like you said, that energy to receive everything you're supposed to receive. Right. So I think it's I'm glad you shared that about energy. I think it's so powerful to share that. So tell us where you are today. So walk us through, you're doing all this amazing work. You're working with these amazing women. And so where are you at today? What's on the horizon for Karla?
Oh, there's so much on the horizon. So one of my favorite things that I love to do is EmpowerCon. So that's my annual conference, and so that's something that's fun and exciting that's happening. I'm also like I'm in the process of like birthing something really epic, and so as soon as I know all of the details of what that is, I feel like right now. What I've kind of have been tapping into is kind of the 3 pillars of how to like really receive that juicy, dream life, how to live the dream. And basically it comes down to know, love, and trust yourself, right? That it's like, first of all, like the knowing of who you are. as you remove all the labels that other people have placed on you, but also looking energetically, I love human design and astrology and a bunch of other woo-woo things, but also like, what is it that you really want? When I was going through a tough situation and I was waiting for someone else to decide. And everybody's like, but Karla, well, what do you want? And I was like, I don't know. And really like digging deep to find out, like, was this a dream? Because this was a dream that we had together. Like, was this my dream? Was this their dream? Was this our dream? I don't know. And so it's like really finding what it is that you want. Because I think especially women, we are oftentimes people pleasers and we go with the flow and we don't want to cause rifts. We don't like conflict. We don't stand up for ourselves. Again, going back to that worthiness part, right? And so really figuring out like who you are at your core, gives you permission and validation that it's okay for you to be you. You are 1 in 7 billion people. You are not supposed to be just like anybody else, and nobody ever will be just like you, because you are the youest you, right? Is that Dr. Seuss? But it's like, you are the only you that has had this unique experience, education, life experiences, training, like conversations, people, like nobody could ever replicate that. But yet for some reason, we still feel like we need to be like everybody else, or we compare our stories or our journeys, or mine wasn't as bad as hers, or mine's worse than hers, or we compete, we do all these things instead of just like really like, what is it that I want, and knowing yourself. And then that love piece, right? Like unconditionally loving yourself. And I'm not just talking about the fluffy self-love kind of stuff, right? Like, yes, those pieces are important, but like really loving yourself to the core, loving yourself so much that you stand up for yourself and you end that relationship that's toxic, that you put good food and things into your body because you love your body and you love how it operates at optimal level because you're healthy and you're strong and you can do these different pieces. Loving yourself means accepting yourself for all of those unique gifts, right? We think that things are bad or good, right? Well, it's neither. It's whatever it is that we decide it is. And so, quit shooting all over yourself and all of those different pieces, but like really loving and accepting and honoring you. And you can do that once you know yourself. Then you can really dig into loving and accepting yourself, forgiving others, but also forgiving yourself, right? Because I think that that's oftentimes like this missing piece. This person caused me harm. Well, also like loving on yourself to say, I love you. Thinking of your teenage self and thinking back and visualizing giving your teenage self like a big giant hug and saying, I love you. And your young little girl self and saying, I love you. Like that is so powerful, and really going into that. Because when we think about the inner critic and the words that come up that are holding us back, it's like our little wounded child. Right? We were walking subconscious brains until 8 years old. And so we just took everything on as if it were truth. Well, so when that fear response comes up, when we do something uncomfortable or scary or stand up for ourselves or go after our goals or dreams, it's really our wounded child that's going back based off of logic of things that have happened before in the past. Just like, oh, don't do that. Don't talk. Remember that one time when someone shamed you, when you stuttered that one time, you shouldn't be a public speaker. And it's really just loving her and saying, look, honey, I love you so much, and I'm not going to let anything happen to us. And we've been working on this, and I've been doing these things, and I love you, and I'm not going to let anything happen to us. It's not telling her to shut up. You wouldn't tell your 2-year-old, your 7-year-old self to shut up and suck it up, because what does that do? That's triggering. You work with her. You love on her. You tell her that you got this and that you're supported. That reduces that fight or flight amygdala response that happens in our brain, because we really are feeling physically in fear, just as we were if we were being attacked by the saber-toothed tiger, which is where the whole thing came from, right? And it's like, no, we are safe. We are taken care of. I got you, babe. I love you. Loving on her. And then also trusting yourself, trusting others, and trusting in God, universe, source energy, that they will provide. Because when we can trust ourselves to actually make decisions and to take inspired actions and listen to our inner guidance in our bodies, because especially again with trauma in the past, that if we had experienced something, we don't trust ourselves because we ultimately made a decision to go someplace, do something, be friends with somebody, and something bad happened. And so for the longest time, I couldn't make a decision like, what do you want for dinner? I don't know, right? It's like the most common, like married people's problems. What do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. I'm asking you. I don't know. I'm so hungry I could eat anything, right? But it's like, didn't want to make a decision because if the experience was crappy or terrible, I didn't want to be to blame for it. So like I wanted no responsibility. I didn't want something bad to happen because I didn't want to feel bad for things outside of our control. But like being able to trust yourself to make decisions, to stand up for yourself, to go after your goals and dreams, trusting others that they too want to help, love, and support you. And then when you put your order, I like to consider it like with manifesting, like I say, like put your order in with the universe, that it's like, you know, that when you go to your favorite store and you go shopping and you add the things into your cart and you click submit, like you trust that they're going to do it. It's going to show up on your doorstep, right? But for whatever reason, we're like, oh my God, I need the love of my life. Will you come? Will you come? Will you come? And what you're doing is you're putting out this desperate, needy energy and vibration, which the universe is going to match that. So what you're going to get more is that neediness, scarcity, scared, worried, fearful feeling. So trusting, and then that just kind of like seals the deal. And that's how you get to create your own juicy, joyful, abundant life where you get to live your own dream.
I love that. I love manifesting. I love how you describe that too. And it's a reminder too that what you put out, if you want, that neediness, that's what you're going to get back. I think it's so powerful. I share the story when my son was in Texas, he was going through some stuff. And I share the story that through meditation, I kept having this, like, I'm scared to death of swimming in deep water. If I can't touch the ground, I don't want to be in it. But it was like this clear blue water, as deep as like you could not see the bottom at all. And I was floating in this ocean of water. And there was like this big steel wall that was just standing there. But there was this door in this steel wall. I would float up to it, but I would bounce off, float up to it, bounce off, float up to it, bounce off. And I was like, what is this? And then I remember we had talked to our son when he was where he was at in Texas. We were having a conversation and was sharing about, we had seen that he was communicating with an ex-girlfriend that was very toxic with him. And so we were worried and concerned. And so we were already talking about, okay, what boundaries do we need to set up around if this happens, right? And so I remember talking to him like 2 days after we had seen that contact was happening. And he said to us, I finally released the last thing I needed to release. And the funny thing was that night before, I'd already done my meditation for the night, but I decided I'm going to meditate again, but I'm going to manifest my meditation. And I just kept saying, I want to have him release this person. So that next night, not even 24 hours later, he tells us, I had to get released the last person in my life. I told her that I could know that she wasn't good for me. And the response he received was along the lines of, oh, you think you're better than me? And he's like, I'm not better than anybody. I'm better without you. And that night, I never had that dream again. And I figured out the wall, that was his wall, and he needed to go through that door. And I was there like trying to hold the door open for him. So it was but manifestation, those that are listening, it works if you do it the right way and you really let the energy be received. So I think that was so powerful how you described that. And so we have a few minutes. Tell us what EmpowerCon is and how do they find out about it?
Yeah. So EmpowerCon is It started off as an in-person conference here in Oklahoma, and then COVID happened and we went virtual, and then that basically turned into like a virtual retreat. And so it's going to be a new rendition, but it's all about back to those pillars. It's all about empowering, educating, energizing, and equipping women with those skills, tools, and resources, so that you can overcome whatever life throws at you, but also to be able to attract and create whatever it is that you want in your life. And so last year became this really beautiful experience of not only like powerful trainings, and this is like, it was very upbeat. We had dance parties, I'm, cutting it up and bringing all of that energy, but like also sharing. And we did tapping, and we had the most beautiful breathwork session. And I actually have 2 people to learn 2 different breathwork techniques. Like if you haven't practiced breathwork, it is so incredible. If you think about, if I were to cut my arm right now and I didn't like do anything with it, just by the air that's surrounding it, it will heal. And so what if we could use this abundant resource that we are always receiving, that we never have to beg or ask for, we know and trust that it's there and enough, if we intentionally use the breath to heal ourselves from the inside out, and with meditation and guided. And so the woman that I use for breath work, she uses a combination of music, poetry, guided visualization, and the breath work. And it's just like, EmpowerCon could be done just with that. But I like to joke and say, I basically have a she shed full of tools. And one of the mantras, I think this was one of the questions that you kind of asked about that I forgot, but it was like the mantras that I use to help me in this current life, in this current situation, because 3 years ago, I went through a new little hiccup in life. I was, 3.5 months pregnant, and some things happened. And because I had all of these tools built up, and journaling and reflection and meditation, but then dove really deep and got into hypnosis and tapping and somatic therapies like shaking and rage dancing and tapping and all of these beautiful things, that I have a she shed full of tools. And it's selfish of me not to share them with you, and not to share all of these beautiful people where this is their expertise, to kind of give you a taste and enjoy these types of things where otherwise you might not ever hear about them. And so that's kind of what EmpowerCon is going to be, a mixture of, one, knowing that you're not alone. I always say we are strong alone and we are infinite together. So that's kind of like this collective power and this sisterhood and us uniting, and not thinking about what makes us different, but how we are all unique and special and beautiful and enough, and all of those different pieces, but to really give you some new tools that you can put in your tool belt or your she shed if you're building a she shed. And so, yeah, so you can stay tuned. I'll probably, I'll just have a link on my website. So I'll say venturelifecoaching.com/EmpowerCon. And I'll just have a waitlist page there for you. So if you're interested and want to stay plugged in, you can sign up on the waitlist to get more information about that as that comes about. It will be in January, so we've got some time yet for that. And then, but back to those mantras, was like, life is happening for me, not to me.
Oh, I love that.
And knowing that everything is happening in divine timing, right? We want to hurry up and rush, but it's like there's so much juicy lessons and joy in the process. So the universe is conspiring in my favor, right? What's for me will not move past me. And those were all things that really got me through kind of, the chapter 3 of, of my story that, not liable to say all of those pieces just yet, but just know that you can, and you've made it this far, right? And so now's the time. Like, I always felt lucky enough that I had this discovery in like my early 20s that started me on this path, right? Some people, they don't start their journey until they're 70 or 80, and it's never too late. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And if you're hearing this now and something resonates, then you all are here listening on purpose. There's a reason why you're here, why you've hung out with us this far. And so it's just a beautiful journey. And then what happens is that you get to inspire and help other people change, because when you heal and you cut those energetic ties, you're giving them the space too to heal. And we can heal generationally. We can't make other people do things, right? We can energetically try. And you, Pearl, as such a beautiful example and role model for your son to understand, to like be able for him to be able to make those decisions, to know that he's worthy of happiness and healthy people around him, right? And you are an example of that for him. And so as we make these tiny shifts and changes, and as we up level and really fully love ourselves, that we get to either help other people love themselves, or those toxic people just start to kind of go away too. That's a whole nother story, but kind of something that I wanted to share.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I love the mantras too. And we have to, I love that, you're supposed to receive whatever you're supposed to receive too. It's really, really important. So this has been a great conversation. We could go on forever. So those of you listening, like, okay, go find your she shed of tools. Like, you deserve a she shed of tools. Everybody should have that she shed of tools, right? Whether it's a coach like yourself or me, whether it's a friend that needs to lift you up, whether it's, if you need to go talk to somebody, go search help. Those are the tools that you're supposed to have. You have a shed, put those tools in there and use those tools. And I'm excited to hear about the EmpowerCon. I'm going to keep an eye out for that too. I think it'd be really cool to come join you, or in whatever capacity. I think that would be awesome. And I'm so excited for that. So I'm so excited you've been here with us today. Tell everybody where, we'll put it up there too, but where can they find you? Tell everybody your Facebook and Instagram handle, and then your website. Share that with them.
All right, perfect. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much, Pearl, for this opportunity. My cheeks hurt so much from smiling. I've just absolutely loved getting to share this space with you. So I'm grateful. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. I am at Venture Life Coaching. And then on Clubhouse, I am Karla with a K, Doctor with an ER. So I just play a doctor on TV. I'm not a real one. Don't spell check my last name. And then my website is venturelifecoaching.com. And if you want, there's a free gift there for you. If you want to start to just kind of envision what that ideal, juicy dream life could look like, I have a guide for you there that also has a video and audio component too, that kind of guides you through a little bit of a visualization to help allowing yourself to dream big, because you're worthy of everything, that it's okay to dream. But that's a big obstacle sometimes, where they're like, it feels so far away. But just think 10 years from now, what that could look like. And then there's actionable ways that you can start implementing that now. It doesn't have to be that you uproot and you move away, but there are little ways that you can bring that into your life now. So that's venturelifecoaching.com/ideal. And that will get you that free guide.
And go find that juicy life dream. I love that. You need to hopefully put like yourself, you need to do some play off on that on your website and stuff. I think that'd be really cool. So as I shared with Karla before y'all got on, and as you guys, the listeners on, we have this little thing. We have these amazing cards. They're called Better Questions, Better Life. And you can get them at betterquestionsbetterlife.com. I get nothing kickback, so I just love promoting these. I actually pull a card every morning, and I journal on it, or I just meditate on the cards. So what we're going to do, Karla, is I'm going to just kind of shuffle the cards. You're going to tell me when to stop, and the card at the bottom is the one you're going to answer. So you tell me when to stop, and we'll get to answer those. Okay. Stop. All right. So your question is, and I think you've done this pretty much all this whole hour. How am I influencing others?
Let me count the ways. Well, here's the deal. A lot of people tell me, "Oh, Karla, I could never do that. I could never go live on Facebook. I could never share, doing a keynote in the fall. Oh, I could never do that." And so here's the deal. You can. And the way that I'm influencing others is because it's not about me. And that's how I was able to do live news interviews when I worked at the nonprofit, how I'm able to do the keynote and show up for you all and to just share my story, is that it's not about me, right? Like I said before, I didn't go through all I went through just to go through it. I went through it because I was put on this planet to make a difference and to share my journey. And there's a difference between like being healed and ready to share versus something that's like still too raw, or you haven't fully learned the lesson that you needed to learn. And so, just knowing that if I can help, or if you can help by just sharing with one person, or Pearl, you did it perfectly with that one person. If someone's in an abusive relationship, not to ask them why they're staying and all of that other crap, because you're just further making this person feel isolated, but just letting them know that you're going to be there for them when they need you, if they ever do need you, or when they reach out and when they're ready, because everybody is on their own path, and we can empower them and we can try to help them see those things. But sometimes we don't know that the stove's hot, even though mom told us not to touch the stove because it's hot. I was always the kid who needed to touch the stove. So I needed to learn the lessons the hard way. But I did tell God, universe, look, I don't need to learn lessons the hard way anymore. We're going to learn them the easy way. I'm aware. I'm enlightened. I'm silent. I'm listening. I'm reflecting. But I know that it's not about me. And so pushing those scary things behind you, whether that's a social media post talking about your business and what you do, or supporting a friend, or volunteering, that really it's not about us. It's what we can do that feels good for us to help empower and inspire someone else.
I love that. I love that you said, okay, I don't have to touch the hot stuff. I think that's awesome. So I want to thank you for spending your last hour with us in the middle of your day. It's been amazing. And for all our listeners, we'll put all the links so you can check out EmpowerCon in January and learn about your juicy life from Ms. Karla as well at her website and social media. Make sure you're following her at all the handles, and we'll post those too. But I want to remind everybody too that we have our pajama retreat coming up in September 23rd through the 27th. We have 10 spots left. So if you're wanting to join us and you're listening to this, you have enough time to grab those spots, come and have it, sit in your PJs for about 4 or 5 days, and have empowered speakers come and empower you to find your inner pearl to greatness. So have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks, Karla.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello, sunshine.